reading aloud for you from my novella Goddess, Chapter 22. Lady Venus tapped her enormous forefinger gently upon Madeline's forehead, and as she did so, a strange sensation reverberated through Madeline's body, and as this force shimmered through her, a lovely awakening arose from deep inside of her, and it was transcendent. It felt, oh my goddess, it felt as if she'd just experienced the most earth-shattering orgasm of her life. Yes, the really good kind, the mind-exploding kind, where the quiver of the tickle reverberates up and down and shimmers up and down her spine and right down to the vagina and through its walls and through her entire body. And the tickling sensation quivers right down to the littlest toes on her feet and right out through the pinky fingers on her hands. And the orgasm just tickles and tickles and tickles for the longest time. And as each tickle shivers through her, she tickles and shivers even more until she's so sated she might explode if she tickles any more. And then amazingly, an even deeper orgasm ripples through her, an orgasm from an orgasm, and she's reduced to a quivering mass of jelly. A nice feeling. A very nice feeling. As these sensations reverberated up and down Madeline's spine, her thoughts drifted back to the last time her husband had made love to her, and it had been a really good lovemaking session, one of the very best kinds. The kind of lovemaking where she'd felt so connected to him she couldn't feel any closer to him than if she'd eaten him up. She'd absorbed him into her body, and after they reached their orgasms, he rolled off her, and they lay in bed all hot and sticky, their arms and legs tangled up in the bed sheets, and she didn't know where her body ended and his began, while the cats watched silently and reproachfully, judging them all the time. And she and her husband remained in that peaceful, semi-somnolent state of utter bliss and contentment for the longest time. That delicious sensation of feeling filled up and living in the moment, and it lasted for one moment more, and then the need to stir, to pee, to sleep took over. But for the seconds immediately following their lovemaking, Madeline couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this filled up, this contented, this blissfully happy. They retained in their hearts their tiny seed of love. It resided deep within them, and they were satisfied and filled up and nurtured. Whatever little irritations there'd been between them were now gone, or, if not gone, at least smoothed over, because it was the sex that bound them, the glue that cleaved them to one another and to nobody else, and that's how private and lovely it felt. That's exactly how it felt. Her body felt lovely and fresh and new. Madeline gazed down in astonishment. What did you just do? I just gave you back your 19-year-old body, and you're wearing the lovely white and black polka dot sundress that your mother wore on her first date with your father. Oh my, is it that easy? Oh yes, Lady Venus said, it's that easy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Madeline ran her hands down her torso and was shocked at the sensation of something hard against her upper torso, residing just under her now tiny breasts. And with a tremble of shock, she realized it was her ribs poking through her skin. In the blink of a statue's eye, she'd lost 40 pounds. And she couldn't get over how little of her remained. The extra weight had simply melted off her body, and in her 19-year-old body, she weighed 125 pounds, her thinnest weight as an adult. Even then, at the age of 19 and at a weight of 125 pounds, she recalled ruefully, she'd considered herself heavy. Her anorexic mindset of many years earlier had told her that she wasn't thin enough. Only she'd been too thin back then, for at that weight, she'd stopped menstruating. Oh my goddess, my body doesn't hurt. No, it doesn't. I feel amazing. You're back in your 19-year-old body again. Madeline pulled up the hem of the dress and gazed at her left hip, looking for the ugly seam of a blood-red scar ribboning down her leg, but no such scar appeared. Her legs, seamless and sinewy, the sight of them filled her heart with delight, and the muscles rippled under the skin as she ran her hands up and down the length of her body in shock and wonderment. And she fought back tears of remorse for what she'd allowed her body to become after all these many years. But isn't that simply the price of life? Lady Venus said. Are you reading my thoughts, Lady Venus? After a fashion, yes. How can you do that? Oh, there are many things you're going to wonder at this evening, and my ability to read your thoughts is just the beginning. Oh, Madeline, my love, your body has borne 57 years of life. Anything that's lasted 57 years isn't going to look wonderful. Besides, I doubt very much that you would have wanted to give up the joy of giving birth and becoming a mother. No, you're right. I love my children more than I love myself, as any good mother does. And as I recall, on the night of your son's birth, something went wrong? That's right. How did you know? The doctors had to perform an emergency cesarean section. Yes, and later in your hospital room, one of the nurses said that you were the crash C-section that night. She could tell the doctors had been in a hurry because she saw the imprints of their fingertips along the C-section scar line. Tears rose up in Madeline's throat. Yes, that's true, Lady Venus, and my husband later told me that I came very close to death. Yes. Lady Venus, how do you, and you still bear the scar of that Caesarean birth, and you wouldn't give it up for anything in the world, would you? No, Madeline said. I gladly paid the price for that scar. You married and made a life with your husband, and you gave birth to 2 beautiful children. And with each child, as you carried that child inside your body, you felt filled up and whole. And even as the child kicked you in the ribs as you sat quietly on the sofa, or as you read a book and saw a tiny fist emerging from inside your belly, like a horror movie alien, yet you basked in the mystery, the magnificence of what you'd accomplished with your body, and you knew that you were helping a beautiful little human into the world. You felt more filled up than you'd ever felt before in your life. Oh, yes. Tears crept down her cheeks. When I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I walked through the backyard on a stone pathway. And do you know, Lady Venus, that as I walked, I sensed her, my Mary Ann? And what's more, oh, this is the most amazing part, Lady Venus. She gazed up at her with a hopeful smile. Yes? Lady Venus, I knew her. I knew my daughter even then, before I met her in person, before she was born. I knew her. Lady Venus nodded. I sensed her, Maddie said softly. I knew the person she'd grow up to become. I knew this about her even when she was still in my womb. Yes. Tears of emotion welled up inside her, and she stopped speaking. She wondered why she even bothered to speak this aloud, for of course Lady Venus knew all. It's all right, Lady Venus said. I love how your voice softens when you speak of your children. Madeline brushed the tears off her cheeks and gazed down at her body once more and started with surprise. She'd not noticed the sandals on her feet. They were pretty sandals, but they didn't look like any sandals she'd ever bought, not that she recalled. As with all women, she knew intimately the shape, size, color, and dimensions of every shoe she'd ever worn in her life, and these sandals did not look at all familiar to her. Lady Venus noticed her staring at her feet. Oh, those, she said with an airy smile. I got you a lovely pair of sandals that I saw in my mind's eye at Macy's the other day. I thought they looked darling. Now, this was another power of Lady Venus's that Madeline had not known. And when one thought on it, it was an amazing power indeed. You got sandals for me at Macy's? Yes, Lady Venus said with a demure smile. On clearance, don't you know? And such a bargain. And then she winked.